6:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here is a news edited by Lal Mallavarachi and read by J. Yogaraj. First headlines. The Ministry of Agriculture says that the measures have already been taken to provide urea fertilizer to farmers for the Maha season. The appropriation bill for the year 2023 will be presented in Parliament for the second reading on November 14th. Red alert for dengue in the country during the rainy season. Price of bakery products could be reduced next week. A new hospital under the name Wellness Village concept will be built in Biagama. News overseas. Russian president says world faces most dangerous decade since World War II. In sports, Australia and England will meet in Melbourne, while Ireland meets Afghanistan in the same venue today. And those are the headlines. The Ministry of Agriculture says the measures have already been taken to provide urea fertilizer to farmers for the forthcoming Maha season. The government has allocated 34,000 metric tons of urea at present, and 40,000 metric tons of MOP fertilizer will be brought to the country by the end of next month. Approval has been granted for the relevant companies to import urea fertilizers required for the Maha season. The tender submitted for purchasing 150,000 metric tons of urea, which is required for the Maha season, was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers recently. The Secretary General of the Parliament, Dhammika Dasanayake, says that the Committee on Parliamentary Business has decided to present the appropriation bill for the year 2023 to Parliament for the second reading on November 14th. Accordingly, as the Minister of Finance and President Ranil Wickremesinghe will deliver the opening speech of the second reading of the appropriation bill to Parliament on November 14th at 1:30 p.m. The debate on the second reading of the appropriation bill will begin on November 15th as decided by the committee, and the vote on the second reading has been scheduled for November 22nd at 5 p.m. This news comes to you from Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Over 62,000 dengue cases and 60 dengue-related deaths have been reported thus far this year in Sri Lanka. National Dengue Control Unit's Director, Dr. Sudat Samaravida, says that even if the number of dengue patients sees an increase, the country's hospital system has the capacity to deal with that situation. He says that the public should be aware about the risk of dengue spreading due to the prevailing rainy condition. Dr. Samaravida said the symptoms of dengue fever will depend on the severity of the disease. Around 75% of the people with dengue fever will not experience symptoms. Minister of State for Finance Ranjit Siamalapitiya says that there is no other option but to raise taxes in a situation where 4 million of 6.8 million families living in the country are demanding various subsidies. Issuing an announcement, he says that the people also have the responsibility to keep the poor people of the country alive. The announcement also emphasized that there is a huge deficit between the government's income and expenditure, and to cover it, as inflation is close to 100%, money cannot be printed anymore, so taxes should be levied as much as possible. The Lumbini International Buddhist Organization of Nepal has donated medicines over 100 million rupees of value to the island. The donation was officially handed over this morning, or last morning rather, by the pioneer president of the organization, Venerable Maitri of Nepal, to the president's senior advisor for national security, Sagala Ratnayaka, at the president's office. According to a request from the 306C2 Leo Club, Balanguda, these medicines were handed over to the base hospital of Balanguda. Chairman of all Ceylon Bakery Owners Association, N.K. Jayawardena, said that the price of bakery products, including bread, could be reduced within next week if a sufficient quantity of imported wheat flour was available. He further points out that although the price of wheat flour was reduced, the bakery owners have to pay 300 rupees in order to buy a kilogram of flour. And that's local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Veda Mahatmya.
a discussion on the acquisition of land for construction of the new hospital under the Wellness Village concept, adjacent to the Begum Hospital, was held yesterday at the Presidential Secretariat. Based on the concept of President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the Wellness Village concept is being implemented for the first time in Sri Lanka to promote medical tourism. And that was top news.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, National Water Supply and Drainage Board says as water supply will be interrupted for 12 hours today from 10 p.m. until 10 a.m. tomorrow in Colombo due to an essential renovation project of the Greater Colombo Water and Wastewater Management Improvement Investment Program. The Water Board says water supply will be suspended in Colombo 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 and 10 during that time. And that was Watchlight.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of...
We give you the strength to rise higher and higher.
Never step back, but always march forward.
Empowering you to reach greater heights. People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
First, the headlines. The Russian president says the world faces the most dangerous decade since World War II. Iran protests escalate as crackdown continues. The transgender tycoon buys Miss Universe contest. And those are the headlines of the world news. The world faces probably the most dangerous decade since the end of World War II. Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned. In a wide-ranging speech on Thursday, he sought to justify Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a move that has left his country internationally isolated. Mr. Putin also accused the West of nuclear blackmail against Russia to force allies to turn away from Moscow. The West has denounced recent veiled nuclear threats by the Kremlin. People protested in front of the government buildings in a northwest Iranian city after one of the biggest nights yet of demonstrations. The human rights group said police shot dead a male protester in Mahabad and another in Sanandaj. The BBC has not verified this. Widespread unrest has rocked Iran since Kurdish Iranian woman Mahsa Amini died in police custody 40 days ago. A Thai celebrity media tycoon who is a transgender woman has bought the company that runs the Miss Universe beauty pageants for $20 million. And Jakapong, he is the boss of JKN Global Group, which makes television shows in Thailand. A purchase of the company, which was once co-owned by Donald Trump, comes as the pageant becomes more inclusive. And that was World News.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of...
Amidst all challenges, we will rally around you and advance.
In the face of hardships, let's stand strong together.
Empowering you to reach greater heights. People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
Moving on to development news, in a potential boost to tourism, trade and investments, the Cabinet has approved and given permission to enter into a bilateral aviation pact with the Netherlands, potentially leading to initiating direct flights between the two countries. The government says the agreement will facilitate Sri Lanka and the Netherlands to commence direct flights. It would be a boost for tourism, trade, as well as investments between the two nations. Although the diplomatic relations between Sri Lanka and the Kingdom of Netherlands were inaugurated back in 1951, no direct flights operate between the two nations so far. And that was development news.
Sports News is brought to you by...
With many values that bind us beyond the transaction, we are Sampath Bank. We present your future.
ICC Men's T20 World Cup Super 12 Group 1 match between Australia and England will be played in Melbourne today. The match begins at 1:30 p.m. Australian time. Ireland meets Afghanistan in the same venue today at 9:30 a.m. Meanwhile, Australian wicketkeeper Matthew Wade tests positive 24 hours out from the England clash but has mild symptoms and is expected to play as Australia do not have a backup. Under tournament rules, Wade is allowed to play and is likely to line up for Australia despite the positive test. His symptoms are minor. Wade will, however, need to travel to the ground separately to the rest of the squad and will not be able to use the team change room prior to or during the game. And that was sports news.
The fastest way to earn the highest interest. An interest rate of 22% in 4 months. NSB, safest place for your money.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Sri Lanka's main stock index gained over 2% in the midday trade yesterday for the second session this week on bargain hunting. The main index moved up 2.24% or 196.69 points to 8,799.66 points at 1200 hours. The market analyst says, although the market is gaining, it is on bargain hunting with investors buying into beaten down assets. And that was business news.
Business News, sponsored by
When I grow up, I'll fly to the moon somehow.
Envision your future now. NSB Prarthana will show you the path to your dreams. This thrift month, open a savings certificate. It's a long-term investment on your future with great returns. A special interest rate of 15% on savings certificates opened in October. Prarthana for children. Prarthana Plus for adults. NSB Prarthana. Your dreams realized.
In the economic news, the tourist arrivals for the first 24 days of the month of October have reached 31,828, bringing the total number of international visitors to the country so far to 558,068 for the year. And the latest provisional data shared by the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority showed an improvement in weekly arrivals for the month of October. And that was economic news. Moving on to weather report, the Met Department says few showers will occur in western, Sabarakamu and central provinces and in Galle and Mathura districts. Showers or thundershowers may occur at a few places in Uva province and in Ampara district during the afternoon or night. And that was the weather report. To wind up this news broadcast, let's look at the main points once again. The Ministry of Agriculture says that measures have already been taken to provide urea fertilizer to farmers for the forthcoming March season. The appropriation bill for the year 2023 will be presented in Parliament for the second reading on November 14th. Red alert for dengue in the country during the rainy season. Price of bakery products could be reduced next week. A new hospital under the Wellness Village concept will be built in Biagama. And with that we conclude this morning news broadcast of Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.